us, the symbols are deep and abiding. The mission the patriarch serves is to point us to Christ and his suffering for us, so that we could be saved. Sometimes this is done by leading us out of sin or out of Egypt. Sometimes it is to work, to suffer, and to die in our place. This cannot be overstated. Faith is not devoid of acts that are done in order to prove your faith to yourself and to others. It is faith that we need firstly, but the only way to show faith, either to others or to ourselves, is to act upon it, just as Christ, being moved to act when feeling compassion for others, pleases God. A Christian who likewise acts in faith pleases God. It is written that Abraham's faith in God, demonstrated through his willingness to sacrifice his only son to God, reasoning that God could resurrect him afterwards, moved God deeply. Abraham never needed to harm his son. The work was done. The faith was witnessed by God. This was the kind of act that moved God so deeply that he attributed righteousness to him. Likewise, our faith in Christ and God's compassion for his only Son is what causes God to attribute righteousness to, or to count us as righteous. In the case of the Exodus, the Israelites had to follow God into the wilderness. And even more specifically, they had to follow Moses. Moses acted as a patriarch to them. This continues the concept of patriarchy in Israel and in the church. The suffering servant, which some argue begins with Abraham, who does not point to self or to self-serving self-aggrandizement, but points instead to God the Father. This concept of emptying of self is what feminism cannot stand today. Instead, they seek to gain as much power as possible, in contrast to how the church views such powers. The feminist demands power for the sake of self, while the patriarch has power thrust upon him and suffers for the sake of others. Even today, these concepts remain in Christian stories, such as Frodo, who carries the one ring of power to Mordor to be destroyed, never acting in self-righteousness, but in servanthood to fulfill a mission given by God. He accomplishes the salvation of Middle-earth. For us, the symbols are deep and abiding. The mission the patriarch serves is to point us to Christ and his suffering for us, so that we could be saved. Sometimes this is done by leading us out of sin or out of Egypt. Sometimes it is to work, to suffer, and to die in our place. Faith can take many shapes, but if we seek to be saved from the evils of the world, we must go on the journey of faith by getting up and acting in faith. There is no alternative to this work. If we have an ability to do it, confession of faith is just the beginning of this path. It is the act later that seals the deal.